Okay, so you know that whole picture of like financial freedom through real estate? Like it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Passive income streams, and you're practically like printing money just by owning property.
Yeah, you see it everywhere.
But then you see the other side of it.
Right.
You know, those for rent signs just sitting there gathering dust and investors who are just like pulling their hair out.
Oh, yeah.
So what's the real story there?
Well, the reality is that dream can turn into a real nightmare pretty quickly if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And especially if you don't go into it with your eyes wide open.
Yeah.
We see a lot of new investors making the same mistakes over and over again.
Right.
And they can be really costly.
And that is exactly what we are diving into today.
Yeah.
We've got this really insightful piece from Facioli Publishing. It's called The 5 Biggest Mistakes New Real Estate Investors Make.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
It's like your insider's guide, you know,
Yeah.
all the knowledge you need so you can just skip that like really expensive trial and error phase. So to really bring these mistakes to life, the article kind of centers around the journey of this guy named Jake.
Oh, yeah.
And he really learns things the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is we can dissect his journey and like extract all those key lessons right now.
Yeah, and learn from his mistakes so we don't have to make the same ones ourselves, right?
Exactly. Our mission today is simple: to equip you with all the insights you need to avoid these really common traps from day one.
All right.
So let's jump into it. The first big one Jake faced.
Okay.
And it's something that sounds so simple,
Yeah.
but it trips up so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Underestimating expenses.
Oh, yeah, you got to watch out for that one.
So Jake, full of optimism, he sees this property.
Right.
It has a $1,200 mortgage payment,
Okay.
and he sees the potential for $1,800 a month in rent.
Mm-hmm.
That $600 difference looks like pure profit.
Yeah, and it's easy to get caught up in that initial excitement, you know?
It's so tempting.
Yeah, especially when the numbers seem so clear-cut at first.
Exactly. It's like looking at the sticker price of a car and just completely forgetting about insurance and gas and maintenance.
Oh, yeah, all the stuff that comes after.
Yeah, so Jake overlooked a whole bunch of really essential costs.
Like what kinds of things?
We're talking property taxes,
Mhm.
insurance, which can be surprisingly high,
Oh, yeah.
the ongoing costs of maintenance and repairs,
Mm-hmm.
those inevitable periods when the property is vacant and brings in zero income.
Right.
And then if you're not managing it yourself, property management fees.
Yeah, all that adds up.
It really does. And the article really highlights the impact of these overlooked costs.
Yeah.
So that seemingly comfortable $600 profit margin
Mhm.
shrinks down to a measly $100 per month
Wow.
once he actually factors in the reality of ownership.
Oof, that is thin.
It is so thin.
Yeah, that leaves you incredibly vulnerable to any unexpected expenses.
Totally. I like to think of it like an iceberg.
Okay, an iceberg, how so?
So the mortgage is just the tip.
Okay.
But below the surface,
Yeah.
there's this huge chunk that you don't see at first.
Mm.
Taxes, insurance, maintenance.
Yeah.
It can often equal or even exceed that visible part.
So you got to chart the entire iceberg.
Exactly. Don't just look at the surface.
Great analogy.
Thanks. And wouldn't you know it?
What?
Life throws a curveball
Oh, no.
in the form of a water heater repair
Hmm.
that not only wiped out that entire $100,
Wow.
but probably put him in the red.
Ouch.
So it's a stark illustration that things break, tenants move, and those expenses pile up so fast.
Yeah, you got to be ready for that.
You really do.
And that brings us to a really practical guideline that the article mentions,
What's that?
the 50% rule.
Okay, what is that?
It's not a hard and fast rule,
Okay,
but it's a really fantastic starting point.
okay.
The idea is to estimate that roughly half of your gross rental income will go towards operating expenses.
Okay.
So that $1,800 in rent,
Mm-hmm.
you should really be budgeting around $900 for those recurring costs.
Wow. Okay, that really changes the picture.
It drives
That
it.
initial $600 profit. Suddenly, it's a much, much tighter margin.
It is.
And that's before any major surprises.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
takeaway number 1,
Yeah,
really, truly dig into all those potential expenses.
don't just glance over them.
Do your homework.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what was the next challenge that Jake faced?
So mistake number 2,
Oh,
and this is critical for like weathering the inevitable storms of real estate,
okay.
not having a cash reserve.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
Huge.
And Jake found this out the hard way.
How so?
When his tenant stopped paying rent.
Ugh, the dreaded situation.
It's the kind of situation that every landlord dreads,
Yeah,
but it's a very real possibility.
absolutely.
And because Jake didn't have any savings set aside specifically for his rental property,
Yeah,
he was immediately in a bind.
Yeah.
He still had that mortgage payment looming,
right.
but no rental income coming in to cover it.
So what did he do?
The article says he had to dip into his personal funds
Oh, man.
just to stay afloat.
Not good.
Not good at all.
It's like it blurs the line between your personal finances
Right.
and your investment.
Yeah.
And that adds a whole other layer of stress.
Which is a really precarious position to be in.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus, as Jake learned, the eviction process isn't exactly a quick fix.
It's not.
It's a whole thing.
It can be. Yeah.
It's often a really protracted legal battle.
Mm-hmm.
The article mentions it took 3 months.
Oh, wow.
3 long months for Jake to finally resolve the eviction.
Yeah.
So imagine that 3 months of zero rental income,
Yeah.
and you're still having to cover all the property expenses.
Ouch, that could be devastating.
Totally, especially if you're highly leveraged.
Yeah.
So what's the key takeaway here?
The absolute necessity of a reserve fund.
Right.
The article recommends having at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved,
Okay.
specifically for each rental property you own.
Got it.
It acts as a financial cushion
Okay.
for things like unexpected vacancies, surprise repairs, or like in Jake's case, periods of non-payment from tenants.
Right. It's all about being prepared
It
for
is.
those what-ifs of property ownership.
Totally.
So real estate investing isn't just about acquiring the assets.
Right.
It's about having that financial resilience
Yeah,
to navigate the bumps in the road.
exactly. Because there will be bumps.
There will be.
Guaranteed.
So we've covered the need to really understand your expenses
Yes.
and the absolute must-have of a cash reserve.
Mm-hmm.
What was that next decision that tripped Jake up?
So mistake number 3 is a really common one,
Okay.
especially for new investors.
What is it?
Buying based on emotion, not on the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to fall in love with a property's charm or, curb appeal.
It really is.
I once had a client who almost significantly overpaid for a property
Oh, wow.
just because it had like the perfect spot for their dog's bed.
Oh, my gosh.
So we had to gently steer them back to reality,
Yeah, back to the numbers.
Yeah.
So the article mentions that Jake's second property had this fantastic wraparound porch.
Oh, yeah.
Tons of care.
Sounds charming.
It does. It sounds like the kind of place you just picture yourself relaxing,
Right.
sipping lemonade.
Yeah.
So that emotional connection totally overshadowed any kind of financial analysis.
It happens.
It does.
You get caught up in the dream.
Yeah. And even though the property was generating negative cash flow, meaning the expenses were exceeding the income,
Oh, wow.
he justified the purchase by saying that he was confident that the value would appreciate over time.
Yeah. That's a
Right.
risky bet.
It is. It's really tempting to think that future price increases will magically erase those current losses.
Yeah, but that's speculation, not a solid investment strategy. You can't bank on that.
So the fundamental principle here,
Yeah.
a solid investment
Mm-hmm.
should generate income from day one.
From day one.
Yes, relying solely on future appreciation is a gamble,
Big time.
and it offers no guarantee of returns.
And market conditions can change
They can.
like that.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck with this property that's just bleeding you dry.
So the key is to really detach emotionally from the property
Right.
and treat it as a business decision.
Exactly.
So run the numbers,
Yeah.
analyze the potential income and all the costs,
Mm-hmm.
and if it doesn't cash flow,
You walk away.
you got to be willing to walk away.
No matter how much you love that wraparound porch.
It's tough.
It is, but necessary.
It is.
You got to let logic and numbers drive your decisions.
So what was the next challenge Jake encountered?
Mistake number 4 gets into the nitty-gritty of actually being a landlord.
Okay.
Self-managing without a plan.
Right.
A lot of new investors think they can save money by doing everything themselves.
Makes sense.
Yeah, cut out the middleman, right?
So Jake decided to go down that path.
Okay, and how'd that go for him?
Not great,
I can imagine.
because on the surface, it seems like a really smart move.
Yeah, why pay someone else when you can do it yourself, right?
Exactly. But as
Smart.
Jake quickly discovered, it is a much bigger commitment than it first appears.
It is a lot more than just collecting rent checks.
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
The article paints a picture of a 2 a.m. phone call about a burst pipe.
Oh, no.
And those unexpected crises, they don't care about your 9 to 5 schedule.
No, they do not.
They do not. Being a landlord, especially if you're self-managing,
Yeah.
is basically a 2-4-7 job.
It can feel like that sometimes.
And beyond those middle-of-the-night emergencies,
Right.
you're constantly dealing with the need to find new tenants,
Hmm.
thoroughly vetting their backgrounds,
Mm.
making sure rent is collected on time,
Uh,
coordinating repairs.
it's a lot.
It's a lot. The article says that by the 6-month mark, Jake was completely burned out and overwhelmed.
I can only imagine.
And all of that stress and those long hours,
Yeah.
they led to some mistakes.
Oh, no, like what?
Well, he ended up with a really bad tenant who not only skipped out on rent payments,
Oh, no.
but also caused some damage to the property.
Oof, double whammy.
It is a double whammy of lost income and unexpected repair bills.
Yeah, that's a tough lesson to learn.
So what's the takeaway here?
Self-managing can be successful,
Okay.
but it requires really well-defined systems
Yeah.
and a ton of discipline.
Right.
You need a really solid process for screening tenants,
Uh-huh.
clear and comprehensive lease agreements,
Right.
and a reliable system for handling those maintenance requests.
Yeah.
So if you're not prepared to handle all of those things effectively,
Yeah.
hiring a professional property manager can be a wise investment.
I bet.
They bring experience and established processes
Right.
that can save you a lot of time, money, and stress in the long run.
So what was that final big mistake that Jake made?
So mistake number 5 taps into that desire that a lot of people have when they first start out,
What's that?
trying to get rich quick.
Oh, yeah.
You see all the stories online about people flipping houses and making huge profits.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
And Jake got caught up in all of that.
He did.
It's easy to be drawn in by those stories of overnight success.
It really is.
But the reality is that building wealth in real estate
Mm-hmm.
is typically a much more gradual process.
Right.
It's about consistent long-term growth.
Okay.
So the article says that Jake saw these online examples and thought he could replicate that without really understanding the nuances of the market
Right.
or the costs of renovations
Yeah.
or how to negotiate properly.
Yeah. And his attempt at flipping did not go well.
It did not.
He overpaid for a property,
Uh-oh.
underestimated the cost of renovations,
Of course.
and ultimately had to sell at a loss.
Ouch is a classic case of getting in over your head by chasing those quick high-risk gains.
So what's the key lesson here?
You got to have a long-term mindset.
Okay.
Building wealth in real estate is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
It's about strategically acquiring quality assets,
Mm-hmm.
generating consistent cash flow,
Yeah.
and potentially benefiting from appreciation over time.
So the article emphasizes that for smart investors, the primary focus should be on that cash flow.
That steady income coming in month after month.
That gives you stability.
It does.
Lets you navigate those short-term fluctuations in the market.
Exactly.
So Jake went through quite a learning curve,
He did.
but his journey gives us this really valuable roadmap of what not to do.
Right. Learn from his mistakes.
So let's recap those key lessons, those
Yeah.
5 biggest mistakes. Underestimating your expenses.
Yep.
Neglecting to build a cash reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Making purchase decisions based on emotions instead of numbers.
Uh-huh.
Trying to self-manage without a solid plan. Right. And getting caught up in that get-rich-quick mentality.
Yeah. Avoid those at all costs.
So the article ends by posing some really important questions.
Okay, like what?
Have you really calculated all your potential expenses?
Yeah.
Going beyond just the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a solid emergency fund in place?
That's key.
Are your decisions being driven by data, or are your emotions taking over?
Got to stay objective.
You do. Do you have a well-thought-out plan for managing your property?
Whether you're doing it yourself or hiring someone.
Exactly. And are you in this for the long haul?
Yeah.
Focused on building sustainable wealth?
Long-term vision.
And if you can answer those questions honestly before you make any investment,
Right.
you're already ahead of the game.
You are.
It's all about being aware of those pitfalls
Yeah.
and proactively taking steps to avoid them.
Success in real estate isn't about never making mistakes.
It's about learning from them.
Exactly. And especially learning from other people's mistakes.
Right.
So you don't have to experience the pain yourself.
So as you're thinking about your first or maybe your next real estate investment,
Mm-hmm.
really take some time to reflect on these lessons.
Great advice.
Run those detailed expense calculations.
Yep.
Build that financial cushion.
Uh-huh.
Make your decisions based on solid data.
Mm-hmm.
Have a solid management plan in place.
Okay.
And keep your eyes on that long-term prize.
Long game.
Because Real wealth,
Yep.
sustainable wealth in real estate. It's built over time
It is.
through smart, well-informed decisions.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to our final thought for you today.
All right, let's hear it.
Smart investors learn before they leap.
Good one.
Which mistake will you make absolutely certain to never repeat?
That's the question to ask yourself.
That's it for today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
It was a great discussion.
It was.
I always learn something new when we do these deep dives.
Me too.